Before we start the video, I want to point out that this review is going to be super casual. It's kinda just an excuse for me to fangirl out for a few minutes. It might seem a little sporadic, but I'm gonna do my best to keep it somewhat consistent. Also, if the gameplay looks a little wonky, it's because my computer can only barely handle the game, and it runs at about half to a third of the speed that it should, so I had to speed up the footage a bit. Shouldn't be too much of a problem, just wanted to address it. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is a 2D 2v2 fighting game developed and published by Arc System Works. It's also a game I've been playing religiously since I was lucky enough to stumble upon it online. And I mean, just one look at the thumbnail should tell you why. The game features characters from BlazBlue, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, Under Night In-Birth, and Ruby. Now to my knowledge, as of the time I'm recording this video, this is the only official fighting game to have Ruby characters. That alone was enough to get me excited, but as a fan of fighting games and a fan of both Persona and BlazBlue, I nearly died when I saw the thumbnail for this game. I'm not even lying when I say that my hands were shaking for the entire download and install process. So for the last 2 weeks or so, I've been playing this game non-stop, and I feel like this game is really underknown for how incredible it is. And I feel like more people should know about it. So without wasting any more time, let's start talking about how good BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle really is. I'll start with the story, since I think it makes the most sense to start there. BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle is divided up into episodes. Each episode is dedicated to the main protagonist of each game. Upon starting episode mode for the first time, you will be greeted with the prologue. Once that's over, you will be immediately plugged into the BlazBlue episode by default. The story mode sort of justifies why all of these different games are being mashed together into one, and it does it fairly well. There wasn't anything in the story that I really had a problem with, and in fact I was pretty intrigued and dying to learn more. I won't go into too much detail as not to spoil anything, but to briefly summarize, a mysterious, unknown character plucks strong warriors and heroes from their own respective world and forces them to compete in the Keystone Scramble Tag Battle Tournament. Participants must find, capture, and protect the Keystone as they bring it to the goal. This is the situation that our respective protagonists have found themselves in. There are 4 episodes in total, and playing through an episode once could run you about 1 to 2 hours. There are multiple ways you can look at what I'm saying. Depending on your play speed and level of interest, there's a potential of 12 hours in the story mode, so if you want a lot of single-player content, it's there, and it's definitely a good sign you'll be getting your money's worth out of this game. On the other hand, the story mode isn't really mandatory, and if you don't care too much, you don't really have to do a whole lot. Now, the story mode is littered with very cool scenes of characters interacting with one another. Some characters who you'd never expect to interact with one another. A lot of these character interactions, I'd go as far as to say all of these character interactions are extremely cool and really funny. I won't go into any spoilers, but watching characters like Ragna and Ruby or Kanji and Waldstein interact really increased my drive and left me craving more. I don't know how qualified I am to speak on this, since like I said, I am playing this on my toaster, and the game runs at about half to a third of the speed it should be running. However, there are no in-battle graphical options to switch around besides VSync and stuff, so I'm fairly certain that what I'm seeing is at least fairly close, if not exactly how it should look, just slowed down. With that in mind, the game looks phenomenal. All of the maps are 3D rendered in order to give the battle more depth, and they all look great. They're all very colorful and vivid and give an easier feeling of immersion with the landscape. The sprites as well are just fabulous, especially since all of them aren't exactly alike. The sprites use shading, color, and outlines to differentiate themselves from each other and to stay more true to their respective games. BlazBlue characters have their classic design and stay true to the previous games. Persona 4 Arena characters have thinner outlines and slightly brighter colors resembling their original sprites from P4A. Under Night In-Birth characters have no outlines whatsoever, focusing solely on shading and making them stand out among the other sprites. Ruby characters have very subtle, sometimes unnoticeable outlines and focus more on color shading to more accurately make them resemble their original 3D models. And the supers are just out of this world. Seeing the background change as you hit your opponent with a Zeodyne or Carnage scissors is so rewarding, and nothing feels better than connecting with an astral finish and watching your current character do something ridiculously awesome. Overall, everything looks really good. As with its presentation, I give this game a pretty high score in this category too. All of the sounds in battle sound really good, the voice acting is phenomenal, and the soundtrack is stunning. Not only is the music stacked with songs from BlazBlue, P4 Arena, Undernight Inbirth, and Ruby, there are also some custom songs made specifically for this game, as well as some mashup type combinations of other songs in the game. As a fan of the music in Ruby, Persona 4, and BlazBlue, I have super high praise for the music in this game. I don't really have much more to say about it. As much praise as I give it, cross-tag battle is standard in terms of content. There's a story mode I already spoke about, a handful of online modes to keep you busy, a training mode that lets you practice with characters, a versus mode that lets you fight a CPU or someone else in the room, a tactics mode that teaches you the basic rules of the game and goes more in-depth on how to play the characters as well as offers challenges, a survival mode that pits you against opponent after opponent with limited health to see how far you can get, an item shop for buying new avatars, icons, titles, and stuff with the in-game currency you acquire by playing the game, a gallery mode to look at any new art you may have earned, and some other things to fool around with. What I really think kicks cross-tag battle up a notch, if you couldn't tell already, is the character roster. I mean, seriously, just look at it. Just the fact that there are Ruby characters in a fighting game is enough to make me fangirl out. But the rest of the lineup is still insane. As of now, there are 13 BlazBlue characters, 7 P4 Arena characters, 7 Undernight Inbirth characters, and 4 Ruby characters. And the characters aren't too one-sided either. There's a fair share of rushdowns, grapplers, zoning, and basic characters throughout the roster, so no matter what style you prefer, you'll always find a few characters you like. The character tutorials and tactics mode have a series of combo challenges to help you grasp the characters better. Admittedly, most of these are extremely easy, but the last few combos the game makes you perform really do give you additional insight on how the character is meant to be played, making it far easier to figure stuff out with them once you take them into training mode. The tutorial does a pretty good job of teaching you the game's key mechanics and everything you're going to need to know to play the game competitively, though, like all fighting games, it leaves out some more advanced things that you're going to have to learn on your own. While not knowing these things isn't necessarily a hindrance to your performance, you will need to learn them at some point if you wish to be a higher tier player. The game does seem a bit confusing and hollow when you first pick it up, but once you really start cracking it open, I'm sure you'll discover there's a bunch of depth there and plenty of stuff to explore and practice with. Now, while I've played a lot of fighting games, I will not go as far as to say that I'm any sort of authority on them. That being said, I believe the most important thing about any game is how fun it is to play. And after over 2 weeks solid of playing cross-tag battle, I'm still nowhere close to getting bored of it. And it's one of the only games to come out in the past 2 to 3 years that has managed to suck me in as well as it has, and get me to spend so much of my time playing it and just trying to get better at it. Seriously, the only game I can think of that's been like this in the past 3 years was P5. Even if there isn't a whole lot of stuff to do in cross-tag battle, playing with friends or against random people, I would argue even against the CPU is a whole lot of fun. And it's really difficult to put the game down once you start it up. All of the characters feel unique and they all play differently, so figuring out how to do some nasty combos or set up an impenetrable neutral game, all of that stuff is just so much fun, and it's gonna keep me playing this game for a really long time. In case you couldn't already tell, I really like this game, and I'd strongly recommend it to anyone who has any interest in fighting games, BlazBlue, Persona 4 Arena, Undernight Inbirth, or Ruby. It's an incredible game made by a team of insanely talented developers with a lot of passion poured into every one of its aspects. Unfortunately, I'm unaware of if there is a competitive scene or not yet, but I hope that as this game gains popularity, one will evolve. In all honesty, when I first picked up the game, I had no idea what Undernight Inbirth was. Like, I never heard of it in my life. But as I started playing the game and I learned more about the characters, I fell in love with them and the concepts surrounding them. So by the time this video is uploaded, you can bet that I have already scoured the internet and downloaded everything relating to Undernight Inbirth that I can get my hands on. I don't know about you, but I think that says a lot about this game. If you have any interest in this game at all, I'd recommend at least give it a shot. Maybe rent it or ask to play it with a friend of yours who has it. Though if you're well versed in traditional fighters and you know you won't have a lot of trouble picking this game up, I absolutely have to recommend this game to you. Gotta get this game. It's phenomenal, and I can't wait to see what comes to it in the future.